And just ahead of Brian Howell, BuffZone.com, Boulder Camera, previewing the Pac-12 in Colorado. Where will they finish in football this season? We'll tell you. This is Rockin Company's Rockin CU. You can follow Brian, by the way, at Brian Howell 33. And Rockin Company's making Colorado beautiful, natural stone rock construction, 5 decades. RockinCo.com. Bring us this segment every week now for more than 4 years on University of Colorado. Zadie's Deli hitting it out of the park. Those greats are there yesterday with super lawyer Laura Menninger. Great sandwiches stuffed with corned beef, pastrami. They make their own corned beef. Free parking front and back in Cherry Creek at 121 Adams Street. And they cater. And by Framed Art. Framer to the pros. Bradley Roby, Champ Bailey, DeMarcus Ware, Ron Leary all had jerseys. Ronald Leary framed there. God, they've done so many jerseys for so many. They are the framers to the pros here in town. All the teams use them. Framed Art, 3065 South Broadway. And we welcome in our buddy, frequent contributor to this show, getting geared up, getting in game shape, Brian Howell. Howdy, Brian.
How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. Kiz has been bragging all morning that he almost ran me down, jaywalking, as a New Yorker will do, approaching a Rockies game this week, and he eased off the gas. As a result, he has a paying job.
Well, I've never heard kids brag before, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, there's actually I'm self-critical here. You know, I had a chance to do everybody a favor, including Michael. Save him, because you know, now 20 years from now, you'll never remember the show even existed. You won't even remember your name, and you'll have the long, painful decline. And I could have prevented all that. Really,
could have gone out on top.
But see, that had to have been the first time you'd ever let off the gas.
Well, then that's true. Now that's a fair point. Whether that's critical or not, that's very fair.
All right, very good, very good. All right. University of Colorado did not let off the gas last year. They went last to first. They won the South Division of the Pac-12, and they've got their work cut out for them this year. They lose their quarterback. They lose eight bodies on defense, although they do have some returning experience, some of those positions they lost starters from. 3 guys gone to the NFL. What does the Pac-12 South look like this year to you? You've been an AP college football poll voter now for a while. And what, in addition to covering the Buffs, and where do the Buffs fit in the mix? Where can they finish?
Well, I think USC is going to run away with the South this year. I just think their talent and kind of what they did last year at the end of the year, I think that's going to carry over to this year. I think they're going to run away with the South. But I think the Buffs are right there in the mix for that second spot. I'd probably put them and UCLA and Utah kind of in the same group. And for CU, they've got to play UCLA and Utah both on the road. So I think if they can get a split out of that, I think they can maybe make a run for that second place spot. But I think I'd probably pick them third going into the season, behind the UCLA and ahead of Utah.
I love the CU CSU game early in the season. Now, I know not all fans do. I know the coaches don't necessarily love it there. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I think right now my guess is CSU and CU are pretty close in talent right now. Agree, disagree, and I think that game's really important to both teams because it can be a real springboard for either one of them. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think CU's got more talent than CSU. I think they're close on offense. I think defensively, I think CU's ahead of CSU. So I think that could be the key to that game. But offensively, I think both teams are going to be a lot of fun to watch this year because I think this could be the best offense CSU's ever had. And CU, I think they're going to be much better than they were last year offensively, in my opinion. So I think that game could be a shootout. It's going to come down to who plays better defense. But I think CU's got better defense, a little more talent on that side of the ball. But I think you're right. I think it's a springboard for both teams. But for CSU, it's going to be interesting because they had that Oregon State game before the CU game. And I'm curious to see how they play against Oregon State. If they don't look very good there, then I don't know how they're going to come back 6 days later and beat CU. If they beat Oregon State, I think they're going to have a lot of momentum coming into the CU game, and it could be very interesting.
And they are capable of beating Oregon State. I'm not saying they will. Oregon State is slightly improved, at least from last year. Gary Anderson making some strides.
I mean,
The big point in that game, though, Brian, I'm gonna maybe disagree with you here. I disagreed with you last year to your benefit. You want when we did our top 25. But
well, whenever you disagree with somebody, Michael, I know the other side of the argument is right on. So go ahead and disagree.
Okay, let me make Brian look good again. Traditionally, if either team sneaks in a game under their belt before the Colorado State game, they come into that game with a tremendous advantage. And this is going to really benefit CSU, win or lose, I think, to have played. They have a veteran squad coming back, CSU, on both sides of the ball, and including the key positions like offensive line and quarterback.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've had that question a lot, as whether it's an advantage or disadvantage for CU, the CSU's playing. I think it's a little bit of an advantage for CU because I think their coaches are very good at breaking down some film and doing a game plan. So I think that's good for them that they've got that. They're going to have that game of film and be able to see CSU a little bit and see some of their new personnel groups. We'll see how it goes, but that's my opinion. I don't think it's a huge advantage or disadvantage either way. But if there's an advantage, I think that CU is going to take that film and be able to use that in a good way.
Okay. I don't remember because I don't remember these kind of things. Did CSU have a game prior to that one a year ago? Because CSU came out in that CU game last year, and they were like non-existent for a quarter and a half. I mean, that's where young Mr. Stevens and his head coach. I thought they almost were going to get a divorce at halftime.
Well, the funny thing is, CSU didn't play a game before last year, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, Stevens was awful in that game and basically gets benched for the next 5 weeks, and when he gets the job back, he was unbelievable. So, that game kind of ruined his season a little bit, at least the first half of it.
Well, we'll make his look good here. He is right that game is a springboard for both teams. I have a feeling Colorado wins the game, and CSU still, like last year, comes back and has a good season, a better season than last year. Getting back to Southern Cal, what really impressed me about Southern Cal when they played Colorado, and of course Colorado didn't have Lou Fowl for that game, as I recall, which would have helped, is how physical, not just the star quality that Southern Cal has, and they've lost a number of those guys like Adore and who I thought was one of the better players in the country. I would have considered for a Heisman. Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver, they're gone. Those guys are gone. But how not just the fact that Darnold, once he got the quarterback, from his second game on, they won 9 in a row and changed the team, but how physical the lines were. They lose 2 starters, although they get a starter back from 2 years ago on the lines. Will Southern Cal offense and defense still be able to be physically dominant, do you think, this year?
I think so. I think they have been for a number of years, and they've got so many good linemen. I mean, a couple of years ago, I remember they had just a ton of injuries up front. It didn't really seem to matter because the guys they were plugging in were just as good and just as physical. So I expect USC to be very physical up front, and that was one of the games, along with the Washington and Oklahoma State games, where CU just got manhandled up front, and they couldn't compete in the trenches in either of those 3 games. And so if they can't do that again this year, I think that they're in for a long day against USC. I'm not sure it'll be as close as it was last year.
One of my favorite CU football players of recent years is young Mr. Lindsey. How big a year can he have?
Yeah, Philip's fun, isn't he?
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a great kid. He's calling him a kid. He's probably 23 years old now, 22, but a great guy and just an unbelievable player for this team. Loves CU to the core, and I think he can have a great year. I mean, last year he was phenomenal. I mean, it was probably the best season a running back at CU's had since Rodney Stewart 6-7 years ago. I know CU wants to kind of plug him for the Heisman a little bit. I don't think he's a Heisman type of a candidate, but I think he can do what he did last year. And if he does that, I think they're in good shape because they've got so many weapons at receiver that they're going to spread the ball a lot to a lot of those different guys. And if you've got Lindsey doing what he did last year, rushing for almost 1,200 yards and catching 50 passes, that's a pretty good year.
Hey, just to finish up here, Brian Howell, BuffZone.com. Follow him at Brian Howell33 on Twitter. Who do you got in the West? Everybody's got Washington and USC in the championship game, and who's your champion?
Yeah, I would have Washington and USC in the championship game, and I'd probably lean towards USC at this point, although Washington, I think, is still very good, and they don't play each other during the regular season, so that'll be an interesting matchup in the championship game. But I'll lean towards USC.
All right, maybe we'll check in with you later this year, see if you're an AP voter again this year, and who's your championship Final Four and who's your championship team. Thank you, Brian.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Brian Howell, BuffZone.com. Read him in the Denver Post as well. Boulder Camera. He is the beat writer for CU, and that's Rockin Company's Rockin CU. Also brought to you by Zadie's Deli and Framed Art, another great Cherry Creek Arts Festival of Brian Hart and Framed Art.
Phil Lindsay is a better college football player than Devontae Booker was. I guarantee.
Love Philip Lindsay. He was my key when we did it earlier this year on Rockin CU. All right, tell everybody that when we come back, it's what's the deal? No deal yet for John Elway.